the pulse of eternal knowledge. When you sense the oneness, you are with us. We brought life to Earth. You can't see us, but we flourish all around you, everywhere, in everything, and even inside you, whether you believe in us or not. From your first breath to your last, in darkness and in the light, we are the oldest and youngest. We are the largest and smallest. We are the wisdom of 1 billion years. We are creation. We are resurrection, condemnation, and regeneration. We are mushrooms.
Mushrooms are very clandestine and very much the trickster. So they're hiding from you all the time. We're in Agarikon territory now. There's some big living snags up here. It's always interesting and exhilarating to be in the old growth forest, but not always rewarding in accomplishing our mission to find a new Agarikon strain. But nevertheless, it beats being in the office. Fungi are the grand molecular decomposers of nature. Now, what does that mean? Well, they break down wood. And here I'm laying in the forest. I haven't peaked yet, but here's a piece of wood laying down on the ground. If I was laying down on the ground and I died, fungi would leap up to recycle me. Well, that's the way of nature. Mushrooms represent rebirth, rejuvenation, regeneration. Fungi generate soil that gives life. The task that we face today is to understand the language of nature. My mission is to discover the language of nature of the fungal networks that communicate with the ecosystem. And I believe nature is intelligent. The fact that we lack the language skills to communicate with nature does not impugn the concept that nature is intelligent. It speaks to our inadequacy for communication. If we don't get our act together and come in commonality and understanding with the organisms that sustain us today, not only will we destroy those organisms, but we will destroy ourselves.
Mushroom is not like a vegetable, and it's not like an animal, but it's somewhere in between. The fungus is its own kingdom altogether. There's over 1.5 million species. That's 6 times more than plants. Of all those species of fungi, about 20,000 produce mushrooms. And mushrooms come in an incredible diversity of shapes and sizes and colors and lifestyles. There are even bioluminescent mushrooms. A lot of people are afraid of mushrooms. People associate mushrooms and fungi, mold, with death and decay, which makes sense. There's a lot of fear because of fungi's role in the cycle of life. They decompose dead and dying organisms and move all those nutrients back into the cycle. They kind of are at the very end of stuff, but they're also at the beginning.
Once you start working with mushrooms, you get drawn in. A really important difference between plants and fungi is that plants have evolved to catch your eye. When a tomato gets red, it is saying, hey, I'm ready, come get me. The mushrooms don't give a shit. They're doing their own thing. And a lot of them are hiding. Every time you pick up a mushroom, you are faced with the omnivore's dilemma. Do I know enough to eat this? Should I eat this? Will this kill me?
And that's one of the reasons why people are freaked out about mushrooms, because yeah, there are ones that can kill you. There are some that'll take out your liver or your kidneys. But to be honest with you, there's berries in the woods that can kill you too. So it's really a matter of knowing your mushrooms. There's a huge subculture of mycophiles, of people who are fascinated with mushrooms. They hunt mushrooms together and they eat mushrooms together, and they're sort of bloated pleasure seekers with a scientific bent. Really my kind of crowd.
This is a tricholoma.
Grifola frondosa.
This is Cortinarius lordogriseus.
Agaricus bisporus.
That's a cladonia lichen.
So I started attending these festivals and forays and learning more and more. It changed the way I saw everything. Mushrooms actually were the window by which I came to understand nature in a deeper way.
If we didn't have fungi, we would get this buildup of plant matter that would choke the earth. I mean, they really are the key. They break down plant life and make it usable for new plant life and for animal life.
They are the digestive tracts of the forest. One of the lifestyles of fungi is the decomposers, called saprobes, or rotters, if you want. The yeasts and molds used in making beer and wine and cheese are all saprobes. That's actually a penicillin mold in Gorgonzola and Roquefort. Bourbon is fungi-fermented corn. But this ability to break things down is a talent, if you will, that can be harnessed to help us deal with some of our problems like pollution. These rotters, they can break down anything that's natural. That's what they've evolved to do. Anything that's hydrocarbon-based. So that includes stuff like oil spills, pollutant problems. That's kind of the truth of it.
I was a part of this experiment. There were 4 piles saturated with diesel and other petroleum waste. One was a control pile. One pile was treated with enzymes. One pile treated with bacteria. And our pile we inoculated with mushroom spores. The fungi absorbs the oil. So the fungi is producing enzymes, peroxidases, that break carbon-hydrogen bonds. These are the same bonds that hold hydrocarbons together. So the fungi becomes saturated with the oil, and then when we return 6 weeks later, all the tarps were removed, all the other piles were dead, dark, and stinky. We came back to our pile, it was covered with hundreds of pounds of oyster mushrooms. Some of these mushrooms are very happy mushrooms. They're very large. They're showing how much nutrition that they could have obtained. But something else happened, which was an epiphany in my life. They sporulated. The spores attract insects. Birds then came, bringing in seeds, and our pile became an oasis of life.
Mushrooms are the fruiting bodies of fungi. So the mushroom is like the apple. The bulk of the organism is growing underground, and it's composed of these long threads. And these threads grow one cell at a time, and then they branch and rebranch, growing in every direction they can, even 3-dimensionally. And that mass of threads is called a mycelium.
A stick falls onto the ground, you pull it up,
And there's mycelium. It is virtually everywhere.
A mycelium has more networks than our brain has neural pathways, and works in much the same way with electrolytes, electrical pulses. They're the most common species on Earth. They're everywhere.
Just to give you an idea of how much fungi are in the forest, as you're walking through, there's about 300 miles of fungi. Under every footstep that you take, and that's all over the world. And they form these massive links. It's like a big web, just growing through the forest.
Mycelium that can grow out even just this big can have trillions, literally trillions of end branchings. Almost everyone knows about the computer internet. The mycelium shares the same network design.
Trees are communicating using the mycelium as pathways. They're connecting one tree to another. They're using the mycelium too to feed one another. In other words, one tree can swap nutrients with another tree using mycelium as the passageway.
So we often think of kin recognition as an animal behavior. Humans, we love our babies. We know it's our baby and we're going to look after that baby. Well, we never thought that plants could do that, but we're finding in our research that plants can recognize their own kin. So these mother trees recognize their kin through their mycorrhizal networks. The mother tree and the baby seedlings are sending signals, talking to each other. When they're connected together and carbon is moving between plants, the trees are supporting the weaker ones. If she knows that there's pests around and that she's under danger, she will increase her competitive environment towards her own babies so that they regenerate further away. It's a magical thing. And this could not happen without the fungi.
I'm not this super idealist tree hugger. I do hug trees occasionally, I do confess to that. But I was a logger, I cut the woods.
Damn. We got a 2-for-1 on that one.
Cutting down these trees and we're gonna let them rot. But we're letting them rot with a purpose. We're letting them rot with shiitake mushrooms, which are delicious and medicinal.
Yes!
September '74, Paul was working as a logger in Darrington. I went up to visit him one weekend and we were out walking in the woods and I started showing him all these mushrooms. He said, what are they? I started looking at the mushrooms for the first time. We came around the corner and there's this purple mushroom, but I'd never seen one like that before. It was just like this huge epiphany, like woo, 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 and that's where it began. He just never stopped.
These are old red velvet polypores, elegant polyporous. It's got a furry stem. This is a delicious shrimp russula mushroom, edible and choice, and it grows here in the old growth forest.
It's rare in science you have such powerful amateurs. The meaning of the word amateur is a lover, and he loves his mushrooms. And he's proven that amateurs can do really credible, important research. And that used to be the case. The 19th century, obviously, was full of great amateur naturalists, Darwin being one of them.
He's handed over to this universal consciousness. That's where genius comes from. Every magnificent thing that humans have ever achieved comes from that place.
I grew up in a small town called Columbiana, Ohio. Very conservative, very religious. And my brother John went to Yale, and my brother Bill went to Cornell, so we were an academic family.
But I had a severe stuttering habit that greatly interfered with my ability to express myself.